4 bullets. That's all I need. She said it standing in blood-caked hiking boots, blonde hair matted with dust, one rifle case at her feet. Every man in that operations center smirked. One woman against 280 Taliban fighters. Colonel Garrett Weston almost laughed out loud. Then his radio crackled. The Soviet DSHK machine gun that had been shredding his perimeter for 3 days went silent. The mortar pit that had been walking death toward his medical tent stopped firing. Both threats eliminated by shots from beyond visual range. By her, before she even walked through his gate. Weston's smirk died on his face, because the ghost story was real, and she was asking for ammunition. 68 hours. That's how long Colonel Garrett Weston had been watching his people die. Not fast, not dramatic, slow, the worst kind. The kind where you count ammunition like coins in a beggar's cup and realize the math doesn't work. 94 American soldiers, was 280 Taliban fighters surrounding them on 3 ridges, 30% ammunition remaining, water rationed to half a canteen per day, 7 wounded in medical, 2 of them critical, and the quick reaction force, the cavalry, the rescue, the only thing standing between survival and a massacre, grounded by a sandstorm 6 hours away. But 6 hours might as well be 6 years. They had 4 hours of ammunition left, maybe less. Weston stood over the tactical display in his operations center and stared at the red markers surrounding Forward Operating Base Ironclad, like a noose tightening around a throat. Every red dot was a gun. Every gun was pointed at his people. Every hour that passed, the noose pulled tighter. He was 56 years old, career infantry, 3 combat deployments. He'd buried friends. He'd written letters to mothers. He'd made decisions that cost lives and decisions that saved them. But standing in that operations center in Paktika province, Afghanistan, in September 2012, Garrett Weston couldn't find a decision that didn't end with body bags. He had already started composing the letters in his head, the letters he would never send because he would be dead alongside his soldiers. But the words formed anyway, the way they always did when a commander faced the mathematics of annihilation. Dear Mrs. Patterson, your son died defending his brothers. Dear Mr. and Mrs. Okonkwo, your daughter showed courage beyond measure. Dear everyone who trusted me to bring them home, I failed you. The door opened. Lieutenant Reed Calloway walked in with the expression of a man delivering a death sentence. Relief convoys delayed again, sir. Sandstorm expanded. They're saying 8 hours minimum now. Weston didn't move. 8 hours. Yes, sir. We don't have 8 hours, Reed. Calloway knew. Everyone in that room knew. 8 hours meant 2 more Taliban assaults. Have 2 more assaults at 30% ammunition meant positions overrun. Positions overrun meant close quarters combat against a 3-to-1 numerical advantage. That meant slaughter. Sir, there's something else. What? North Gate just radioed in. Someone walked through the perimeter. Weston turned sharply, walked through. On foot, single individual. No vehicle, no escort. Just appeared at the wire. Through 280 Taliban fighters? That's what the gate guard said, sir. They can't explain it either. And Corporal Diaz swears he blinked and she was just standing there, like she materialized out of the darkness. She? Female, sir. Civilian clothes, armed, carrying a rifle case, asking for you by name. Weston grabbed his sidearm and moved, because nothing good walks through a kill zone uninvited. She was standing inside the gate when he arrived, and everything about her was wrong. Early 30s, blonde hair pulled tight under a dusty ball cap, face weathered by sun and wind, and something deeper, something that aged eyes faster than skin. She wore civilian hiking gear layered over a plate carrier that had seen real use. The ceramic plates were scratched and dented in patterns that told stories of bullets stopped and lives continued. Scuffed boots, calloused hands, a battered rifle case sat at her feet like a loyal dog. She looked like a trail hiker who'd taken a very wrong turn. She did not look like someone who'd just walked through the most dangerous 300 meters in Afghanistan, but her eyes, pale blue, almost colorless in the pre-dawn light, scanning, cataloging everything without appearing to move. The guard towers, the firing positions, the blind spots in the perimeter. Those weren't hikers' eyes. Those were predators' eyes. Colonel Weston. Not a question. She already knew who he was. Who the hell are you? And how did you walk through my perimeter? Was Serena Ashford. Colonel Rowan Mercer sent me. The name hit Weston like a fist to the sternum. Rowan Mercer, Fort Benning, 1996. The toughest instructor he'd ever served under. The man who'd broken him down and rebuilt him into the officer he became. Mercer had a philosophy that bordered on obsession. Precision saves lives. Hesitation costs them. He drilled it into Weston during the longest 6 months of his military career. Made him shoot until his fingers bled. What made him calculate wind drift until the numbers invaded his dreams. Made him understand that every bullet was a choice, and every choice had weight. Mercer had retired years ago. Weston hadn't spoken to him in over a decade. The last he'd heard, the old man was consulting for some private military contractor, passing on his knowledge to a new generation of shooters. Mercer sent you. He repeated it slowly, testing the words for traps. He's at Landstuhl Medical Center, stage 4 pancreatic cancer. Maybe 3 weeks left. She said it flat, clinical, like she was reading coordinates off a map. But something flickered behind those pale eyes when she said the words. Something that looked like grief held at arm's length by sheer force of will. He's been watching your situation through satellite feed. He sent me because help through official channels isn't coming fast enough. Weston looked at Calloway. Calloway looked at Staff Sergeant Virgil Harmon, who'd materialized at the edge of the group with his hand resting near his sidearm. Harmon was 55, 2 weeks from retirement, a Desert Storm veteran who'd survived the highway of death in 3 subsequent deployments. His instincts were screaming. Weston could see it in the way the old sergeant's weight shifted to the balls of his feet. Ready to move in any direction. Miss Ashford. Weston heard the smirk in his own voice before he could stop it. I appreciate whatever Colonel Mercer thinks he's doing, but we're surrounded by 280 Taliban fighters with fortified positions on 3 ridges. The QRF is grounded, and you, one woman, walked in here with a rifle case and expect me to believe you're the solution? He almost laughed. He caught himself, but the damage was done. The smirk was there. Calloway saw it. Harmon saw it. The gate guards saw it. Serena Ashford saw it. She didn't flinch, didn't bristle, didn't defend herself. She just looked at him with those pale eyes and said words that would echo in his memory for the rest of his life. 4 rounds, sir. That's all I need. Precision application at extended range. I take out their command chain. Their coordination collapses. Your QRF has time to reach you. The operations center went dead silent. The kind of silence that follows a gunshot. The kind that tells you something fundamental just shifted. Calloway froze with his coffee halfway to his mouth. Harmon's fingers tightened on his sidearm. Not because Serena was a threat, because what she just said was either the most insane thing anyone had ever uttered at FOB Ironclad, or it was real. Weston stared at her. 4 rounds. Against 280 fighters. Against 4 commanders. Kill the brain, the body stops moving. You know that, sir. Colonel Mercer taught you the same thing he taught me. Weston was still processing when Harmon stepped forward and said the thing everyone was thinking. Sir, do you realize what she's claiming? She's saying she can hit individual targets at ranges that would make a scout sniper team think twice. Alone, with a bolt-action rifle, in conditions we can't even properly assess. I heard what she said, Virgil, and you're considering it. I'm considering the alternative, which is 94 dead Americans. That shut Harmon up. Not because it was harsh, because it was true. Serena let them argue. She stood perfectly still, weight balanced, rifle case at her feet. I'm watching them with the patience of someone who'd spent years waiting for men to finish talking before letting her do the work. She'd been in this position before. The doubt, the dismissal, the smirks. She collected them like coins and spent them as fuel. Then Weston asked the question that changed everything. Before you came through the gate, did you do something on the way in? She didn't answer immediately. Her jaw tightened, almost imperceptible. The DSHK on Ridge East. Weston pressed forward. The Soviet-era heavy machine gun that's been shredding our perimeter for 3 days. It went silent 40 minutes ago. No malfunction, The crew just scattered, ran like they'd seen a ghost. I noticed that too, Calloway said carefully. And the mortar pit, the one that had been walking rounds toward our medical tent. It went dark at the same time. No explosion, no visible attack. Just stopped. Everyone looked at Serena. She didn't confirm, didn't deny. It looked mechanical. The pages were worn, dog-eared, filled with handwriting so precise it looked mechanical. The pages were organized by colored tabs, each section representing a different element of what appeared to be an exhaustive intelligence assessment. She laid it on the nearest table and began pointing. Your enemy command structure, Senior Commander Rashid Dostani, 62 years old, former Mujahideen. He runs communications from the Western Ridge using a modified Soviet antenna array, decentralized command nodes with centralized communication. I identified him by radio pattern analysis over the last 12 hours. He transmits every 47 minutes. Creatures of habit make predictable targets. Weston felt the blood drain from his face, not because of the information, because of how she had it. Intelligence like this took teams, resources, days of surveillance with proper equipment. She'd done it alone in half a day. Mortar coordinator Hassan Mirwais, Eastern Slope, third firing position from the north. He adjusts fire every 23 minutes in grid sweeps. Predictable. He compensates for wind from the west, but overcorrects by about 2 degrees. Amateur. She flipped a page. Field Commander Ahmad Karimi, Central Observation Post. He coordinates assault waves using runner systems because he doesn't trust radios after your first airstrike request was denied, but they intercepted it anyway. He's adapting. If I don't take him within the next 6 hours, he'll reorganize, and your QRF window closes permanently. He's the most dangerous because he's the most flexible. The room was absolutely still. Weston looked at the notebook, looked at the tactical display. The red markers matched her intelligence perfectly, every position, in every commander, every pattern. Information his own intelligence officer had been unable to compile in 3 days of siege, laid out in neat handwriting by a woman in hiking boots. How long have you been out there? 12 hours. You've been watching for 12 hours before you came inside. I needed to confirm the command structure before I presented a solution. Colonel Mercer doesn't approve of unverified intelligence. Bad intelligence gets people killed. That's Phantom of Helmand. Serena's eyes, Phantom of Helmand. Serena's eyes flickered, just once. A micro-reaction that a less experienced commander would have missed entirely, but Weston caught it, and he understood. The Phantom of Helmand. The name soldiers whispered during night watches. A ghost story, an urban legend, an impossible sniper who appeared in combat zones, took impossible shots, and vanished before anyone could identify them. Some said it was a man, some said it was a team, some said it was propaganda invented by command to boost morale. Nobody said it was a woman in hiking boots standing in a forward operating base asking for 4 bullets. The stories said the Phantom had been active for 4 years, appeared in the worst situations, made shots that defied explanation, and never stayed long enough to be identified or thanked. Weston had always assumed it was myth. Shut the door and looked at her the way shut the door and looked at her the way you look at a loaded weapon, with respect, with caution, with the awareness that what you're holding can save you or destroy you, depending on how you handle it. I need to know why. His voice was harder now. Commander's voice. Colonel Mercer is dying. He could have called this in through channels. JSOCCIA. I run anyone. Why send one person through the most dangerous approach in this theater? Because channels are what got you trapped here, sir. Her voice matched his hardness. Request for air support denied due to proximity to civilian structures. Request for QRF denied until weather clears. Request for reinforcement delayed by interagency coordination failures. Bureaucracy. How many of your soldiers are going to die while someone at Bagram fills out authorization forms? She wasn't wrong. Weston hated that she wasn't wrong. And why you specifically? The question hung in the air like smoke. Serena's jaw worked. She looked past him, through him, at something only she could see. Some memory that lived behind her eyes and never fully let her go. When she spoke, her voice was different, lower, rougher, like she was pulling words through gravel. Because 4 years ago, I made a mistake that killed 14 innocent people. Wrong target, wrong timing. So 14 civilians dead because I pulled a trigger I should have questioned. Weston held very still. Colonel Mercer has been helping me pay that debt ever since. Every mission since Helmand has been part of the payment. This is part of the payment. 94 lives for 14. That's the math. That's not how debt works. It's how mine works. She looked at him directly. No self-pity, no martyrdom, just cold, clean accountability that burned like dry ice. Sir, I'm not asking for permission. I'm asking for 4 rounds of .50 BMG specialty ammunition and access to the North Ridge observation post. You'll never see me in a report. You'll never see me at a ceremony. I do this and I walk out the way I walked in. That's the deal. Weston studied her. Every instinct he had as an officer screamed against this. Unauthorized personnel. No chain of command. No official orders. If this went wrong, his career was over. Courts-martial, investigations, public disgrace. He could already hear the JAG officer reading the charges. But his instincts as a soldier, the instincts Rowan Mercer had forged in him 20 years ago at Fort Benning, those instincts said something else entirely. Those instincts said this woman could save every life under his command. Virgil, he raised his voice. Harmon opened the door immediately. He'd been standing right outside. Of course he had. Get her 4 rounds of .50 BMG from the specialty safe. Authorization code Mercer 7. And Harmon blinked. Sir? You heard me. Harmon looked at Serena, looked at Weston. The sergeant's face cycled through disbelief, concern, and finally something that looked like hope. Then he nodded once and moved. Serena refused radio contact. Taliban monitors every frequency. The moment I key a mic, they triangulate my position and drop mortar rounds on my head. Radio discipline means radio silence. You'll know I'm working when their command structure starts failing. She packed the notebook. Check the rifle case. Moved toward the door. Weston stopped her. One more thing. Mercer sent you and not a scout sniper team. Why? And don't give me the debt speech again. I want the real reason. Serena paused. Her hand rested on the doorframe. For the first time, Weston saw something human beneath the ice. A flicker of something fragile. Something protected by layers of discipline and distance and silence. Because the colonel is dying. And the last thing he wants to see before he goes is proof that what he taught matters. That the worst mistake doesn't have to be the final lesson. That the person he trained can still save lives instead of just taking them. She pushed through the door and walked into the pre-dawn darkness. No goodbye, no dramatic exit, just a woman with a rifle and a debt she was determined to pay. Weston watched her go. The darkness swallowed her in 3 steps. Like she was made of shadow and silence, and the kind of purpose that doesn't announce itself. Harmon appeared at his elbow. The sergeant's face was tight. Worried. The kind of worry that comes from 30 years of combat experience, telling you something extraordinary is happening, and you're not sure if extraordinary means miraculous or catastrophic. Sir, we're really trusting our defense to one woman with a rifle. Weston didn't look away from the darkness where Serena had disappeared. No, Virgil. We're trusting Colonel Mercer's judgment. He trained me. He trained her. If he says she can do this, then she can do it. And if she can't, then we're exactly where we were an hour ago. 94 Americans surrounded by 280 Taliban with 8 hours until the QRF arrives and enough ammunition to hold for maybe 4. Harmon was quiet for a long time. She passed through 280 fighters without leaving a trace, sir. Nobody saw her. Nobody heard her. Diaz at the gate. He's got the sharpest eyes in the unit. Says he was watching that approach and she just appeared. That's not just training. That's something else. It's Mercer. Everything that woman is, Mercer built. Harmon shook his head slowly. God help the Taliban. God help all of us, Virgil. Go get some rest. Something tells me tomorrow's going to be loud. Nobody slept. The compound held its breath, waiting for something none of them could name. Soldiers checked ammunition for the 5th time. Medics reorganized supplies that were already organized. The wounded in medical lay still and listened to the silence outside the walls, wondering why the guns had stopped. Private Lena Coltrane, 22 years old, 10 months at Ironclad, drew perimeter duty on the roof observation post. She climbed the ladder at 0400, expecting empty sandbags and cold wind. She found Serena Ashford, frozen, absolutely motionless. It showed exactly where hands had gripped it. Showed exactly where hands had gripped it through countless operations. A scope that caught starlight and held it. An engraving on the receiver that Lena had to squint to read in the darkness. RM to SA. Hold the line, ma'am? Nothing. No response, no movement, not even visible breathing. For a moment, Lena wondered if the woman was dead. Then she saw the slight pulse in Serena's neck, steady as a metronome. Ma'am, I'm Private Coltrane. I have perimeter watch. I know who you are. The voice came from Serena's direction, but barely moved the air. You're the one who jury-rigged the water purification system last month with truck radiator parts. Colonel Mercer's briefing mentioned you, resourceful under pressure, good instincts for improvisation. Lena felt the hair rise on her arms. How does a colonel in a hospital in Germany know about my water filter? Because he's been watching this base for 3 weeks. Because he's dying, and the last thing he's doing with his life is making sure the people here survive. He knows every soldier in this compound, their names, their specialties, which ones panic under fire, and which ones get sharper. Lena knelt beside her, close enough now to see Serena's eye pressed to the scope, her finger resting outside the trigger guard with the discipline of a surgeon holding a scalpel, close enough to see the faint tremor in her jaw. Not fear, control, the kind of control that costs something, the DSHK on Ridge East. Lena said it carefully. That was you. It was zeroed on your medical tent. Next volley would have killed 7 wounded soldiers, including Corporal Nolan Bryce. He took shrapnel 3 days ago. Infection's setting in. He's got a wife who's 8 months pregnant. That machine gun wasn't going to take his daughter's father. The words were clinical. The emotion beneath them was not. You shot someone at 1,200 meters. In the dark, 1,200 of 43. Precision matters. The difference between 1,200 and 1,243 could be the difference between a headshot and a miss. Could be the difference between stopping the threat and alerting the whole ridge to your position. Lena stared at her. This woman, oh, this ghost in hiking boots, had walked through enemy lines, eliminated 2 threat positions, mapped the entire enemy command structure, and now lay behind a rifle waiting to do something that every rational part of Lena's brain said was impossible. Why? Lena heard herself ask. No rank, no unit patch, no recognition. Why do this? The silence lasted so long, Lena thought she wouldn't answer. 4 years ago, I killed 14 innocent people. Wrong target, wrong timing. I've been trying to balance that equation ever since. Bad intelligence happens. That's not your... It was my trigger. Serena's voice cut like a blade. My responsibility. The colonel taught me that. You carry every death, the righteous ones and the mistakes. You carry them all, Private. The day you stop carrying them is the day you become dangerous for the wrong reasons. Lena felt something cold settle in her chest. Not fear, understanding. The kind of understanding that ages you. And I need you to get those 4 specialty rounds from Staff Sergeant Harmon, and then I need you to get 200 meters away from this position. Why 200 meters? Because when I start firing, every Taliban gun in this valley points at this ridge. Anyone near me becomes collateral. And I didn't walk through a kill zone to get more Americans killed. Lena stood. Her legs felt unsteady. Can I ask one more thing? Make it quick. Are you going to save us? Serena's eye never left the scope. Her breathing never changed, but something in her voice shifted. Something that might have been warmth in someone who allowed themselves warmth. 94 for 14. That's the math, Private. Now go get my ammunition. Lena found Staff Sergeant Harmon in the armory at 0415, already pulling ammunition from a locked safe like he'd been expecting her. His hands were steady. His face was not. She sent you for the rounds, not a question. Yes, Sergeant. He placed 4 cartridges on the table, and each one longer than Lena's hand. Heavy brass, polished but not new, custom loads, hand-measured powder charges, match-grade projectiles, each one worth more than a month of Lena's pay. You know what these are, Coltrane? .50 caliber BMG specialty rounds. These are Colonel Mercer's personal loads. He shipped them here 6 days ago through a supply chain I didn't know existed. 6 days before anyone outside this compound even acknowledged we were in trouble. Back when everyone at Bagram was still saying the situation was developing. That old man was already planning the rescue, already knew the official channels would fail, already knew his people would need something the military couldn't provide through normal means. Harmon's voice caught. He covered it with a cough. That woman passed through 280 Taliban fighters without a trace. 30 years I've been doing this. Never seen anyone move like that. And I think we're all going to be alive tomorrow because of her. Lena took the rounds. They felt heavier than physics could explain, like they carried the weight of all those lives they were meant to save. Coltrane. Sergeant? Stay away from that ridge when the shooting starts. She's not wrong about what happens next. Lena carried the ammunition through the compound. Soldiers watched her pass. Nobody spoke. Everyone knew something was happening. Nobody knew what. She climbed back to the observation post and found Serena exactly where she left her. Frozen still. Eye pressed to scope, breathing so shallow the dust around her didn't move. 4 rounds. Lena placed them beside the rifle. Serena's hand moved. Slow. Deliberate. She picked up the first cartridge and loaded it with a precision that made the motion look ceremonial. The bolt closed with a sound like a vault locking. 200 meters, Private. Now. Yes, ma'am. Lena turned to leave, then stopped. And the engraving on your rifle. RM to SA. That's Mercer to you. Move, Coltrane. He gave you that rifle. He gave me everything. The rifle's just the part you can see. Now move before I give the Taliban a second target. Lena moved. She made it 180 meters before her legs gave out, and she dropped behind a concrete barrier, heart hammering, pressed her back against the wall. She could still see the observation post, a tiny figure behind sandbags. 1 woman, 1 rifle, 4 bullets. The whole compound was holding its breath, and at 0437, the world cracked open. The sound was unlike anything Lena had heard, not the sharp bark of an M4 or the heavy thud of a .50 caliber mounted gun. This was a rolling crack that split the pre-dawn air like thunder breaking over the mountains. It echoed off every ridge. It bounced between valleys. It filled the world with the sound of something ancient and terrible and precise. Taliban radio traffic exploded. Even without monitoring equipment, Lena could hear the chaos. Distant shouting, frantic movement, the unmistakable panic of men who just lost their command structure and couldn't understand how. Weston's voice came through every radio in the compound. North Ridge, report. What just happened? Harmon answered from the operations center. He'd been watching through binoculars with the intensity of a man witnessing a miracle. Western Ridge, sir. Taliban communications officer is down. Confirmed hit. I saw him drop. He paused. Recalculated. Paused again. Sir, range is approximately 2,200 meters. Dead silence on the radio. 2,200 meters. Over a mile and a third. A shot that most military snipers would call theoretical. A shot that belonged in textbooks and bar stories, and the kind of lies old soldiers tell when they have had too much whiskey. Serena Ashford made it look routine. 4 minutes later, at 0441, the second crack rolled across the valley. Same sound. Same terrible precision. The mortar coordinator on the eastern slope dropped mid-sentence on Taliban radio. His crews scattered before the echo faded, running down the ridge like men who'd seen the devil himself reach out and touch their commander. 1,870 meters. Harmon's voice was hollow now, disbelieving. The mortar tubes that had been walking death toward the medical tent went permanently silent. 2 shots, 2 commanders dead. So 2 pillars of the Taliban siege knocked out in 4 minutes. Inside the operations center, Weston gripped the edge of the tactical display and watched red markers begin to scatter. Without their communications officer, the Taliban couldn't coordinate. Without their mortar coordinator, they couldn't suppress. The 280 fighter force that had been choking FOB ironclad for 3 days was fracturing in real time. She's doing it, Calloway whispered. She's actually doing it. Two down, Weston said. Two to go. But the third shot didn't come. Minutes passed. 5, 10, 15. The compound tensed. Soldiers who'd been counting shots waited for the third crack that would tell them the nightmare was almost over. It didn't come. Why isn't she firing? Calloway asked. Weston raised his binoculars and focused on the north ridge. What he saw made his stomach drop. Serena hadn't moved. Still behind the rifle. Still frozen. But she wasn't hiding anymore. Her position was exposed. Not deliberately exposed. She'd shifted the sandbags to create a gap that any competent observer on the surrounding ridges could identify. She's showing herself. Sir? She's making herself a target, Reed. She took 2 shots from that position. Every Taliban fighter on 3 ridges now knows exactly where she is. She could have relocated. Should have relocated. Instead, she's sitting there visible, waiting. That's suicide. No, that's bait. Weston lowered the binoculars. His hands were shaking. While every gun in the valley points at her, they can't organize an assault on us. She's buying time, drawing fire. One woman pulling the attention of 280 fighters away from this compound. The weight of it hit everyone in the room simultaneously. The quiet, the terrible math. 94 lives balanced on one woman who had decided her life was worth less than theirs. That's what happens. Weston's voice broke on the words. When someone decides 94 lives matter more than one. The PKMs opened up at 0503, 3 coordinated machine gun positions on the eastern and southern ridges. The sound was monstrous, a continuous hammering roar that shredded the sandbags on the North Ridge observation post. Concrete dust erupted. Tracer rounds cut orange lines through the morning air. The Taliban had found her, and they were pouring everything they had into killing one woman. Weston grabbed a medical kit from the wall. Harmon was already at the door, body armor on, the helmet strapped, moving with the speed of a man half his age. Sir, you can't. I'm not losing her. Reed, you have command. 200 meters of open ground. Direct fire from 3 positions. Rounds snapping past so close, Weston felt the pressure waves against his face. Harmon ran beside him, stride for stride. 55 years old with 30 years of combat experience telling him this was insane, and running anyway. Because some things matter more than survival, and this was one of them. They reached the observation post in 43 seconds. 43 seconds of running through hell. Weston slid behind the shattered sandbag wall and found Serena slumped against the concrete barrier. Left hand clamped over her right shoulder. Blood. Dark. Steady. Too much. Seeping between her fingers. Through and through. She said it before he asked. Her voice was strained but controlled. Her eyes were focused, tracking. Even bleeding. Even with a bullet hole through her shoulder. She was watching the 3 machine gun positions that were trying to kill her. Commander. Stupid idea coming up here. Probably. Harmon was already working. 30 years of combat medicine compressed into muscle memory. He cut the sleeve, packed the wound, applied pressure. Serena didn't flinch, didn't gasp, didn't make a sound. She just kept watching the ridges through eyes that were starting to lose focus. 2 targets left. Field commander, central observation, and someone else. Someone else? Someone I can feel but haven't confirmed. Trained, patient. He's been watching me since before the first shot. I couldn't identify his position, but he's there. Eastern ridge, maybe the rocks above the tree line. He's good. As good as anyone I've faced. Maybe better. Weston felt ice flood his veins. Because 30 minutes ago, before he'd sprinted through gunfire to reach this position, an intelligence report had landed on his desk. A report he'd hidden from everyone. A report that confirmed his worst fear. Fareed Nazari, age 44, former Mujahideen sniper. 34 confirmed kills during the Soviet occupation, trained by American CIA advisors in 1986. Instructor of record, Colonel Rowan Mercer, the same mentor, the same doctrine, the same school of precision and patience and lethal discipline. Mercer had trained Serena, and 20 years before Serena, Mercer had trained the enemy's deadliest shooter. Weston said nothing. When Serena had a bullet through her shoulder, 3 machine guns trying to kill her, and 2 targets left to hit. Telling her that one of those targets was a mirror image of herself, trained by the same dying old man who'd sent her here, would break something. He couldn't afford to break her. Not yet. Can you still shoot? Can't hold the rifle steady. She looked at her hands. They were shaking. Blood loss and adrenaline crash turning the steadiest hands in the world into trembling instruments. I need someone to brace it. She looked at Harmon. Looked at him with recognition that went deeper than the moment. Staff Sergeant Virgil Harmon. Benning, 1994. Expert marksman qualification. 3 consecutive years. Colonel Mercer kept your training records. Harmon stared at her. He kept my records. He kept everyone's records. Every student he ever trained. He tracked all of you. Knew where you were. Knew what you became. She swallowed. He was proud of you, Sergeant. He told me. Said you were the steadiest hands he ever trained. 18 years of silence, and Mercer had been watching him the whole time, tracking his career, keeping his records, telling students about the sergeant with the steadiest hands at Benning. Harmon's eyes went red. Then I'll hold the damn rifle. His voice cracked, but his hands didn't. Tell me what you need. Lie beside me. Support the forend with both hands. I handle scope and trigger. You handle stability. When I say breathe, you breathe. And when I say hold, you hold. When I say fire, you don't move a single muscle. Harmon got down beside her. PKM rounds continued to hammer the sandbags above them. Concrete dust fell like snow. The noise was deafening, but Harmon placed his hands on the rifle and something changed. The tremor stopped. The weapon steadied. 2 people, one wounded, one old, both trained by the same man, became a single firing platform. Weston pulled the satellite phone from his vest. His fingers found the number he'd memorized but never called. Landstuhl Medical Center, Ward 7, Room 14. The phone rang 3 times. 4, 5. Then a voice. Weak, labored, thin as paper, but absolutely clear. Garrett, Colonel Rowan Mercer, dying 12,000 miles away, but present. I've been watching. UAV feed on my laptop. Tell me she's alive. She's alive, sir. Wounded. Shoulder through and through. She's taken 2 of 4 targets. She needs your help for the 3rd. Silence. Then breathing. Labored, rattling breathing that told Weston the cancer was everywhere. And the man on the other end of this call was running on nothing but will. Put me on speaker. Weston pressed the button. Serena heard Mercer's voice come through the tiny speaker, and her entire body went rigid. The wound didn't cause it. The cold didn't cause it. It was hearing the voice of the man who had built her, broken her, rebuilt her, and was now dying while she bled on a rooftop in Afghanistan. I need to tell you something. I need to tell you something. Something I should have told you 4 years ago. Sir, I have a target window. You need to listen. That's an order. The PKM fire intensified. Rounds chewed into the sandbag wall 6 inches above their heads. Harmon pressed flatter. Serena pressed flatter. But neither of them moved from the rifle. And 12,000 miles away in a hospital bed in Germany, a dying colonel began to speak. Helmond. 4 years ago. The 14. Serena stopped breathing. The intelligence was wrong. You know that. Everyone knows that. But what nobody knows, what I never told you, is that I knew it was wrong. The words hung in the air like poison. 30 seconds before you fired, I saw drone footage. The target was carrying documents, not weapons. I told you to wait. But I didn't scream abort. I should have been absolute. I should have pulled you off that trigger with everything I had. Instead, I hesitated. I let you make a decision based on information I knew was compromised. Tears fell anyway. Clean, silent, cutting pale tracks through the dust and dried blood on her cheeks. 4 years of buried grief breaking through a dam she thought was permanent. Then I lied. Mercer's voice cracked. The dying man's voice cracked for the first time. In the after-action report, I said it was my call, my authorization. I let you carry guilt that should have been mine because I thought it would make you better. Sharper, more careful. I thought the weight would forge you into something unbreakable. He coughed, a terrible wet cough that came from lungs being consumed from the inside. But all it did was hurt someone I care about. All it did was turn the best student I ever trained into a ghost who walks through war zones trying to pay a debt she doesn't owe. You are released, Serena. Those 14. You are released, Serena. Those 14 faces. They're my burden, not yours. They were always mine. I'm taking them with me when I go, and I'm going soon. That's my final order. You are free. The PKM fire stopped. A brief lull. Reload cycle, maybe. 15 seconds before it started again. In that silence, Serena Ashford closed her eyes. Just for a moment. Just long enough to feel 4 years of guilt lift from her chest like a stone rolling off a grave. Not gone. Nothing like that is ever truly gone. But shifted, rebalanced, redistributed to the shoulders that should have carried it all along. When she opened her eyes, something was different. Not harder, softer. Like something clenched for 4 years had finally opened. She settled behind the scope. Harmon steadied the rifle. Mercer's voice came through the satellite phone. Barely a whisper now, guiding the calculation. Wind from the southwest, 8 knots. Thermal rising off the ridge. 2 degrees of deflection. Target is moving. He's pacing. 4-second cycle, left to right. Wait for the pause at the eastern edge. He always pauses. Old habit, nervous habit. He's done it his whole career. Serena dialed the scope. Her wounded shoulder screamed. Blood soaked through Harmon's field dressing. None of it mattered. Tomato for the 94, she whispered. For the 94. Mercer echoed from 12,000 miles away. She fired. The third round left the barrel at 2,800 feet per second. It crossed 1,240 meters of Afghan air. It found the field commander at the exact moment he paused at the eastern edge of his pacing pattern. The old habit Mercer had predicted. Impact. The field commander dropped. Taliban radio traffic dissolved into screaming chaos. The assault coordination that had been holding 280 fighters together collapsed for the third and final time. Enemy forces began pulling back to defensive positions. The siege was breaking, but Serena didn't celebrate. She didn't exhale. She didn't lower the rifle. She stayed pressed to the scope, scanning, searching, her wounded body running on something beyond adrenaline. Then she said 2 words that changed everything. He's here. Harmon looked at her. Weston looked at her. Eastern Ridge. Rock formation above the tree line. The shadow doesn't match the sun angle. Someone's been lying in that position for at least 6 hours. Professional concealment. Professional patience. She swallowed blood. Trained shooter. Patient. Disciplined. He let me take 3 shots without revealing himself. He's not Taliban infantry. He's a professional. And he's been waiting for exactly this moment. Weston's hand went to the satellite phone. His mouth went dry. Because the intelligence report he'd hidden was no longer something he could hide. His name is Farid Nazari. Weston said it quietly. Serena went still. Former Mujahideen, 34 confirmed kills against the Soviets, trained by CIA advisors in 1986. Weston paused, forced himself to say it. Instructor of record, Colonel Rowan Mercer. The silence on the rooftop was absolute. Even the wind seemed to stop. Even the distant gunfire seemed to pause. Because what Weston had just said meant something that none of them wanted to face. Mercer didn't just train the woman trying to save them. He trained the man trying to kill them. Same teacher, same doctrine, same lethal education, master against master, student against student. And the dying old man who'd created them both was listening through a satellite phone from a hospital bed in Germany. Serena's voice, when it came, was barely a whisper. Colonel, did you hear that? Mercer's breathing filled the phone, slow, painful, the breathing of a man who was running out of time and knew it. I heard it, Serena. You trained him. I trained him. And now he's here to kill me. The longest pause. The kind of pause that holds decades of history and regret and choices that can never be undone. Yes, Mercer said, and God forgive me for both of you. Mercer spoke about Farid Nazari the way a father speaks about a son who chose a different road. I met him in 1986, or 20 years old. Village outside Jalalabad. Soviets had killed his mother, his father, 2 sisters, and a brother. He was the only one left. Dug their graves with his bare hands because he didn't have a shovel. I found him 3 days later, still sitting beside those graves, not crying, just staring at the dirt like he could see through it to their faces. Serena listened with her eye pressed to the scope, scanning the eastern ridge for the shadow that didn't match the sun angle. And blood continued to seep through Harmon's field dressing. Her shoulder had gone from screaming pain to a dull, heavy numbness that was worse, because numbness meant her body was shutting down systems to keep the critical ones running. He didn't want revenge. Mercer continued. That surprised me. Most of the Mujahideen fighters we trained wanted blood. Fareed wanted something else. He called it justice. He wanted the skills to protect what was left of his people. So I taught him everything. One, patience, discipline, reading terrain, wind calculation, the psychology of holding still when every nerve in your body tells you to move. You taught him the same things you taught me. I taught him first, 20 years before you, and he was the best student I ever had. A pause. Until you came along. How good is he? Better than anyone you've faced. 34 confirmed kills against Soviet forces, and those are just the ones that got documented. And he could hold a position for 72 hours without moving. I once watched him wait 11 hours for a single shot. He took it at 1,400 meters in crosswind. Perfect hit. Harmon shifted beside Serena. His hands tightened on the rifle forend. Colonel, with respect, you're telling us the enemy sniper's as good as she is. I'm telling you he might be better. He's older, more patient. He's had 30 years of combat experience. And he knows my doctrine inside out because I wrote it for him. Serena processed this without visible reaction, but Weston, watching her from 3 feet away, saw something shift behind her eyes. The rapid, cold assessment of a mind trained to reduce problems to variables. His weakness, Serena said. Everyone has one. Pride. Mercer didn't hesitate. Fareed always needed to prove superiority, not to others, to himself. He'll want the difficult shot, the one that demonstrates mastery. If you give him a target that looks challenging but is actually a trap, he'll take it. He won't be able to resist. It's his fatal flaw. The thing I could never train out of him because I didn't see it clearly enough until it was too late. You're asking me to bait him. I'm telling you how to beat him. There's a difference. Serena went silent. Her eye continued scanning. The rock formation on the eastern ridge sat 1,130 meters away. The shadow anomaly was still there. Fareed Nazari was still there. I'd watching her the way she watched him. Two predators locked in a patience game that only one of them would win. Colonel, she said quietly, you're asking me to beat someone you also love. You understand that? The silence from Landstuhl lasted so long that Weston checked the connection. Still active. Mercer was still there, still breathing, still choosing. If I have to choose between my students, Mercer said, and his voice carried the weight of a man confronting the worst decision of his life. I choose the one trying to save lives over the one trying to take them. I choose you, Serena. And Fareed? Fareed made his choice. I grieve it, but I won't let his choice kill 94 Americans. That's not justice. That's not what I taught him. He twisted it. He took what I gave him and pointed it at the wrong people. Serena absorbed this. Then she said something that made Harmon's hands tighten on the rifle. I need Commander Weston to walk across open ground. Weston looked at her. Excuse me? Went from operations to medical, 50 meters, normal pace. Not fast, not slow, natural movement. You want me to be bait. Fareed has your compound zeroed. He knows the approach routes. He'll have the operations to medical corridor pre-calculated. It's the most exposed crossing in the compound. When you walk it, he'll see a high-value target in the open, a commander. The difficult shot through the corridor between buildings, where wind channels compress and deflect. The difficult shot, Weston repeated, in the one his pride won't let him refuse. When he fires, his muzzle flash reveals his exact position. He'll reposition immediately. That's doctrine. Mercer taught him the 7-second rule. Fire, move. 7 seconds to new cover. That's my window. 7 seconds. And if he doesn't miss me? Serena looked at him directly for the first time since she'd been shot. Those pale eyes held something that might have been apology, might have been respect. They might have been the cold recognition that war demands sacrifices, and she was asking for his. He won't miss by much. 3 feet, maybe 4. Fareed doesn't miss targets. He misses parameters. The wind channel will push his round. He'll calculate for it, but he'll overcalculate because he always overcalculates on pride shots. He wants perfection. Perfection in a compressed wind corridor means overcompensation. You're betting my life on a personality flaw, and I'm betting your life on 30 years of Colonel Mercer knowing how his student thinks. Same way I'm betting my life on him knowing how I think. Weston looked at Harmon. Harmon looked back. The old sergeant's face said everything. This is insane. This is terrifying. And this is the only plan that works. When? Now. Before Fareed repositions. He's been in that hide for 6 hours. He's committed to the position. If we wait, he moves and I lose him. Weston stood. His knees protested. His body knew what his mind was asking it to do, and every survival instinct he possessed screamed against it. 50 meters of open ground. A sniper trained by the same man who trained the woman asking him to walk through a kill zone. Garrett, Mercer's voice from the phone. Thin, fading, but absolutely certain. She's right. Walk normal. Don't hesitate. If you hesitate, he reads it as a setup and holds fire. You have to be real. Easy for you to say, sir. You're in a hospital bed. Son, I'm dying in a hospital bed, Garrett. And the last thing I want to see before I go is my people survive. Walk. Weston checked his body armor, tightened the straps, took a breath that tasted like dust and blood, and the particular flavor of terror that comes from choosing to do the thing that terrifies you. If I die, he told Serena, you better make that shot. You won't die, Commander. That's not a guarantee. No, it's a promise from someone who doesn't break them. He climbed over the sandbag wall and dropped to ground level. The compound stretched before him. Operations center to his left. Medical tent to his right. 50 meters between them. The most exposed 50 meters in Afghanistan. Serena shifted position. She couldn't stay on the north ridge. She couldn't use the same position twice. She crawled, bleeding, dragging her wounded shoulder across concrete to the southern observation post. A position Fareed wouldn't expect because it violated Mercer's doctrine of maintaining high ground advantage. Serena was breaking the rules her teacher taught her, betting that Fareed would follow those rules and look for her where doctrine said she should be. Harmon crawled beside her, braced the rifle, locked his hands, became her stability while she became the weapon. I'm in position, she radioed to Weston. One word, one transmission. If Fareed was monitoring frequencies, sure as she'd just given him a bearing. But it didn't matter. In 7 seconds, this would be over one way or another. Walking, Weston said. He stepped into the open. Every soldier in FOB ironclad who could see the corridor stopped breathing. Private Lena Coltrane, pressed against her concrete barrier 180 meters away, watched the commander walk across open ground with the measured pace of a man taking a Sunday stroll. Not fast, not slow, natural. Exactly as Serena had instructed. 1 step, 2, 3. Weston felt the air change. The particular quality of silence that precedes violence. He'd felt it before in Fallujah, in Korangal, in a dozen firefights where the world goes quiet half a second before it explodes. 10 meters, 15, 20. His radio crackled. Serena's voice. One word. Contact. She'd seen it. The flash. A microsecond of light from the eastern ridge. The sun catching a scope lens as Fareed adjusted his aim. He was tracking Weston. Calculating. Preparing. 25 meters. Or 30. Weston's spine tingled. The animal part of his brain knew a bullet was coming. Knew it with the certainty of prey sensing the predator's final shift before the strike. 35 meters. 40. Serena watched through her scope. The rock formation. The shadow. And then movement. Subtle. Almost invisible. The barrel of a rifle adjusting by millimeters. Fareed was in his final firing sequence. Breath control. Trigger press. The shot was coming. Down. Serena screamed it into the radio. And Weston dropped flat. Pure reflex, pure trust. His body hit the ground so hard his helmet bounced off packed dirt. The round passed through the space where his chest had been. 3 feet above him, the crack of a supersonic bullet splitting air was followed by the distant boom of the rifle. The sound reached Weston a full second after the bullet passed, and in that second, he understood, with absolute clarity, how close he'd come to dying. Fareed's muzzle flash bloomed from the rock formation, way exactly where Serena had predicted, 1,130 meters east, and the moment that flash appeared, Serena's world narrowed to a single point. She didn't aim at where Fareed was. She aimed at where he would be in 4 seconds, because Mercer taught the 7-second rule. Fire, move, reposition. And Mercer taught all his students to move right after firing. Always right, dominant hand side, an instinct drilled so deep it became automatic. A habit that couldn't be broken because it lived in the muscle memory, below conscious thought. Fareed fired. Fareed moved right, exactly as Mercer had taught him 3 decades ago. Serena pulled the trigger. The fourth and final round left the barrel. It crossed 1,130 meters of Afghan morning air. It arrived at the rock formation 4 seconds after Fareed began his reposition, exactly when he would be transitioning between his firing position and his escape route. The moment of maximum vulnerability, the half-second when even the most disciplined sniper is between cover and exposed. Impact. The sound came back across the valley, a distant flat report that echoed off the ridges and faded into nothing. Serena kept her eye pressed to the scope, watching, counting heartbeats. 1, 2, 3. No movement from the rock formation, no secondary shot, no repositioning. Target down. Confirmed. Weston lay face down in the dirt, breathing dust, and heart slamming against his ribs. He rolled onto his back and stared at the sky. Blue, perfectly blue. The kind of blue you only notice when you thought you'd never see it again. Commander, Harmon's voice on the radio. Target confirmed down. 4 for 4, 4 targets, 4 rounds. Done. Mercer's voice came through the satellite phone. Barely a whisper now. The voice of a man whose body was failing, but whose mind was still sharp enough to understand what had just happened. 4 for 4. A job complete. A breath. A long, shuddering breath that rattled with fluid and finality. You did it, Serena. Colonel, listen to me. I don't have much time, I can feel it. So listen. Serena listened. Harmon listened. Weston, still lying on his back in the dirt 40 meters away, pressed his radio to his ear and listened. I'm proud of you. Not because of the shooting, because of the choosing. You chose 94 strangers over your own safety. When that's not what I trained into you, that's what was already in you. I just helped you find it. Colonel, please, stop being a weapon, Serena. Start being a person. You've earned it. The debt is paid. The 14 are my weight, not yours. I'm taking them with me. Promise me you'll try. Tears cut clean lines through blood and dust on Serena's face. She pressed her forehead against the rifle stock. The metal was warm from the shots, warm like a hand holding hers. I'll promise to think about it, Honor, sir. Then that's enough. A sound that might have been a laugh, might have been a sob, might have been both. Tell Garrett he was the best officer I ever trained. Tell Virgil his hands were always steady. Tell them both I'm sorry I couldn't be there. You are here, Colonel. You've been here the whole time. Static crept into the connection. Mercer's voice faded, came back, faded again. Hold the line, Serena. Always, sir. The connection dissolved into static, then silence. The kind of silence that fills the space where a voice used to be. The kind of silence that tells you something fundamental has left the world and isn't coming back. Serena lowered her head, closed her eyes, pressed both hands flat on the concrete beneath her as if she could feel the earth's heartbeat through the stone. For one long moment, she was somewhere else. Not Afghanistan, not the observation post. Somewhere between the living and the dead. In the space where gratitude and grief are the same thing. Weston got to his feet, walked back toward the observation post. His legs felt like water. His hands shook. But he walked. Because that's what you do when someone needs you. You walk. He climbed to Serena's position and sat beside her. Said nothing. Didn't touch her. Didn't comfort her. Just sat. because sometimes silence is the only appropriate response to loss. And Garrett Weston had enough combat experience to know that the worst thing you can do for a grieving soldier is fill the quiet with words. Harmon sat on her other side. 3 people on a rooftop in Afghanistan, a wounded sniper, a retiring sergeant, and a commander who just walked through a kill zone on faith, bound together by a dying man who'd loved them each differently and completely. Serena spoke first. He waited, stayed alive just long enough to see it finished. He saw you free. Weston said, that's what he wanted most. He trained me to be a weapon, then spent 4 years trying to undo it, then used his last breath making sure I could be something else. She opened her eyes. They were red, swollen, and still tracking, still watching, still carrying the weight of everything she'd seen. That's either the bravest thing anyone's ever done for me or the cruelest. Both, Harmon said. Same as everything in this job. Minutes passed. The valley was quiet. Taliban forces, leaderless and disorganized, had pulled back to defensive positions. The siege that had been choking FOB ironclad for 68 hours was broken. 3 shots shattered their command. The 4th stopped the counter-sniper. 4 bullets from a woman who'd walked through enemy lines carrying 4 years of guilt and a rifle engraved with a promise. Weston's satellite phone buzzed. He answered, listened. His face changed, aged, became something older and sadder and more permanent, till he lowered the phone. Landstuhl just called. Colonel Rowan Mercer passed away. Cardiac arrest 12 minutes ago. His voice held barely. He was watching a video feed on his laptop when he went. The nurses said he kept repeating the same thing. What? Serena whispered. She did it. She's free. Serena didn't cry. She'd already cried. What she did was worse. She went still. Completely, absolutely still. The way she went still behind the rifle. The way she went still when the world demanded everything and offered nothing. Stillness as armor. Stillness as grief. Stillness as the only response to a loss so deep that movement felt like betrayal. Then she reached for the rifle, touched the engraving, RM to SA. Hold the line. Traced the letters with her fingertip, gently. The way you touch something sacred. He gave me this rifle the day after Helmand. I wanted to quit. I wanted to disappear. He put this weapon in my hands and said, you don't get to quit. You get to be better. And then he spent 4 years making sure I was. He made sure of a lot of things, Weston said. 6 days before we were even surrounded, he shipped those specialty rounds here. He knew before any of us. He saw this coming and he prepared for it because that's who he was. He prepared people for the worst and then gave them the tools to survive it. Harmon stood slowly, looked at the valley. Hertwin looked at the ridges where 280 Taliban fighters had been brought to their knees by 4 rounds and 1 woman's will. Looked at the sky where a UAV he couldn't see had carried a dying man's eyes across 12,000 miles. Sir, the QRF. With the siege broken, their approach is clear. They can be here in 2 hours. Radio them. Full approach, all vehicles. Tell them the situation is contained. Weston paused. Tell them a specialist handled it. Keep it vague. No names. Harmon nodded and moved. Serena sat against the wall of the observation post. Her wounded shoulder had soaked through the second field dressing. Her face was pale. Her hands had finally stopped shaking. Not because the adrenaline had passed, but because she had nothing left to give. Every ounce of will, every drop of training, every lesson Mercer had ever taught her had been spent in the last 2 hours. She was empty, but her eyes were different. For the first time since she'd walked through the gate of FOB Ironclad, where they weren't scanning, they weren't calculating, they weren't tracking threats and measuring distances and counting the living and the dead. They were still. Commander, she said quietly. Yeah? I felt him go before the phone call. I felt the moment he left, like a frequency going silent, like a hand letting go of mine. Weston nodded. He understood. He'd felt it too. Not the same way, not with the same intensity, but something had shifted in the air 12 minutes ago. It was something had left the world that had been holding it up. He chose you, Weston said. At the end, when it mattered most. He had 2 students on that battlefield, and he chose you. He didn't choose me. He chose what I was trying to do. Weston looked at her. This woman, this ghost, this weapon that a dying old man had been trying to turn back into a human being. Bleeding, broken, sitting on a rooftop in a country that would never know her name. That's the same thing, Ashford. Serena closed her eyes, leaned her head back against the concrete, let the Afghan sun warm her face for the first time in 12 hours. And somewhere in the compound below, 94 American soldiers breathed freely for the first time in 3 days. Because one woman held the line, and one old man held her. The first armored vehicle crested the ridge at 1,000 hours. The sound of its engine broke something loose inside every soldier at FOB Ironclad. Not relief, not yet. Something deeper, more primitive. The sound of survival becoming real instead of theoretical. 6 vehicles in total, 200 fresh soldiers, full medical teams, ammunition resupply, water. Everything that 94 Americans had been dying without for 3 days came rolling through the valley in a column of dust and diesel exhaust. Sure, and the soldiers who'd been holding the perimeter with empty magazines and dry canteens stood at their posts and watched the convoy approach, with the stunned expressions of people who'd already accepted death and now had to recalculate. Lieutenant Colonel Hayes climbed out of the lead vehicle and walked into the compound expecting carnage. He'd been briefed on the situation during the approach. 280 Taliban, 68-hour siege, 30% ammunition, 7 wounded. He'd brought body bags. I have 40 of them, because the math said at least that many Americans should be dead. Instead, he found 94 soldiers standing, defensive positions intact, enemy forces scattered across 3 ridges in complete disarray, and a compound that smelled like gunpowder and blood, and something else. Something that smelled like a miracle nobody could explain. Hayes found Weston in the operations center. The commander looked like he'd aged 10 years in 3 days, unshaven, eyes hollow, a hand still carrying a tremor he couldn't suppress. Garrett, what the hell happened here? I was told you were hours from being overrun. We were. Then how are your people alive? A specialist handled the situation. A specialist? What specialist? I don't have any record of JSOC deployment to this area. No CIA assets. No. It wasn't official. Hayes stared at him. Not official. Garrett, you had an unauthorized combatant operating inside your perimeter during an active siege. I had a woman who walked through 280 Taliban fighters, identified the entire enemy command structure, and eliminated 4 targets with 4 rounds at ranges exceeding a mile, while wounded, while bleeding, while a dying colonel guided her by satellite phone from a hospital bed in Germany. Weston met Hayes' eyes. You want to write that up? Be my guest. But every soldier in this compound is alive because of her. Every single one. Hayes opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. He was a career officer. Regulations mattered to him. Chains of command mattered to him. Unauthorized operations on American military installations during active combat violated about 15 articles he could name from memory. But 94 living soldiers who should have been dead made the regulations feel very small. Where is she? Medical tent. I need to debrief her. Name, unit, authorization. Her name is Serena Ashford. She has no unit. She has no authorization. Yeah, and I'm asking you personally, soldier to soldier, to keep it that way. Garrett, no names in reports, no medals, no publicity. She doesn't want recognition. She wants to disappear. And after what she did for us, that's the least we owe her. Hayes looked at him for a long time. Then he looked at the tactical display, at the red markers that were now scattered and retreating. At the 4 precise eliminations that had broken a siege military planners would have said required an airstrike to resolve. 4 rounds, Hayes said quietly. 4 rounds. Average range over 1,200 meters. The first shot was 2,200. Hayes sat down. Not because he was tired, because some facts need to be absorbed sitting down. That's not possible. I watched it happen. Harmon watched it happen. My entire compound watched it happen. It's not possible, and it happened anyway. Hayes was quiet for a long moment. Then he pulled out his notebook and crossed out the first 3 pages of his debrief notes. Started fresh. wrote 2 sentences. Siege broken by precision fires from organic assets. No further details available. He looked at Weston. That's what goes in my report. God help us both if anyone digs deeper. Thank you, sir. Don't thank me. Thank whatever ghost walked into your compound and gave you 4 miracles. Weston didn't correct him. Didn't tell him that Serena wasn't a ghost. She was a woman. A broken, bleeding, grieving woman who just lost the only person on earth who understood her. Calling her a ghost was easier. Ghosts don't have feelings. Ghosts don't carry guilt. Ghosts don't sit in medical tents with through-and-through shoulder wounds, wondering what comes next when the person who gave you purpose is gone. The compound transformed over the next 6 hours. Fresh water, medical evacuations for the critical wounded, ammunition resupply, hot food for the first time in 3 days. Soldiers moved through the routines of survival with the mechanical gratitude of people who understand how close they came to not surviving. But 3 people didn't join the routines. 3 people stayed close to the medical tent, orbiting it the way planets orbit a sun, drawn by the gravity of what had happened on that rooftop and what it had cost. Harmon was the first to go in. He found Serena sitting on the edge of a cot. Her face showed nothing. Her eyes showed nothing. 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 Her face showed nothing. Her eyes showed. Her face showed nothing. Her eyes showed everything. How's the shoulder? Doc Preston says I'll keep the arm. That's the bar we're clearing. Good bar. She continued working. Harmon stood in the doorway and watched her hands move. Steady now. The tremor was gone. But the steadiness felt different than before. Less like control and more like exhaustion, pretending to be control. I'm 2 weeks from retirement. I know. Colonel Mercer told me. Said you'd been counting the days since last Christmas. Harmon smiled. Small. Real. The kind of smile that only happens when someone knows you well enough to know the things you thought were private. 4 grandchildren. 2 boys, 2 girls. The youngest one, Maya, she's 3. She calls me Poppy. I've got a whole plan. I'm going to teach her to fish. Lake Oconee. Soir resumed. That sounds like a good plan. Resumed. That sounds like a good plan, Sergeant. It's a selfish plan. 30 years I've been doing this. Missing birthdays, missing first steps, missing everything that matters because I was standing watch somewhere that didn't know my name. He stepped inside the tent, sat on the cot across from her, watching you hold that rifle while you were bleeding, watching you take that 4th shot when Doc Preston said you should have been unconscious. Taught me something Mercer never could. What's that? That this job isn't about the shooting. It's about the staying. You stayed on that rooftop when you could have quit. You stayed behind that scope when your body was shutting down. You stayed because 94 people needed you to stay. He paused. I've been staying for 30 years, and I've earned the right to go home. Serena looked at him directly, with eyes the color of winter sky, carrying the weight of things she'd never speak aloud. But in them, for just a moment, Harmon saw something that looked like permission. Go home, Virgil. Go meet those grandchildren. Stand watch for them now. That's a mission worth every bit of what you've given. He extended his hand. She took it. Her grip was weaker than he expected. The shoulder wound had taken more out of her than she was admitting. But the handshake held. So 2 soldiers, bound by a mentor they'd both lost today. If you ever need a place where people understand, you've got family at Benning. Mercer students take care of our own. I'll remember that. Will you? She almost smiled. Almost. I'll promise to think about it. Harmon recognized the phrase, the same words she'd said to Mercer. His eyes went bright. He nodded once, stood, walked to the tent flap, turned back. Ashford, yeah, Poppy, Lake Oconee, worms in a coffee can. East warmth had been. Corporal Nolan Bryce came to the cot and said, Serena, I'm here to help you. She looked up at him, her eyes wide with fear. I'm sorry, she said. I can't do this. He knelt down beside her and took her hand. It's okay, he said. I'm here to help you. She nodded, her voice barely a whisper. I'm sorry, she said again. I can't do this. He took her hand and led her to the cot. It's okay, he said. I'm here to help you. She nodded, her voice barely a whisper. I'm sorry, she said again. I can't do this. He took her hand and led her to the cot. It's okay, he said. I'm here to help you. She nodded, her voice barely a whisper. I'm sorry, she said again. I can't do this. He took her hand and led her to the cot. It's okay, he said. I'm here to help you. She nodded, her voice barely a whisper. I'm sorry, she said again. I can't do this. He took her hand and led her to the cot. It's okay, he said. I'm here to help you. She nodded, her voice barely a whisper. I'm sorry, she said again. I can't do this. He took her hand and led her to the cot. It's okay, he said. I'm here to help you. She nodded, her voice barely a whisper. I'm sorry, she said again. I can't do this. He took her hand and led her to the cot. It's okay, he said. I'm here to help you. She nodded, her voice barely a whisper. I'm sorry, she said again. I can't do this. He took her hand and led her to the cot. It's okay, he said. I'm here to help you. She nodded, her voice barely a whisper. I'm sorry, she said again. I can't do this. He took her hand and led her to the cot. It's okay, he said. I'm here to help you. She nodded, her voice barely a whisper. I'm sorry, she said again. I can't do this. He took her hand and led her to the cot. It's okay, he said. I'm here to help you. She nodded, her voice barely a whisper. Warmth had been. Corporal Nolan Bryce came next. On crutches, shrapnel in his left leg still setting off metal detectors, and probably would for the rest of his life. He moved slowly, painfully, and with the determination of a man who will not be stopped by something as trivial as a wounded body. When he stood in the doorway of the medical tent and looked at Serena with eyes that held something she wasn't prepared for. Not gratitude, not awe. Something simpler and more devastating. Understanding. You're the one who killed the DSHK crew. Sit down before you fall down, Corporal. He sat, leaned the crutches against the cot, looked at his hands. Big hands. Mechanic's hands. Hands that were going to hold a baby in a few weeks if he survived long enough to get home. My wife called 3 hours ago. Satellite phone patch through the QRF comm unit. She had the baby. Serena went still. Girl, 7 pounds, 4 ounces. Born while we were trapped here. While I was lying in medical with shrapnel in my leg and a machine gun trying to finish me off. His voice broke. He let it break. Didn't try to fix it. If that DSHK had fired one more volley, the rounds would have come through the tent wall. Doc Preston told me, direct line of fire, trajectory calculations. Want one more volley and I don't meet my daughter. Corporal, we named her Grace. The word hung in the air. Serena's hands stopped moving on the rifle components. Her jaw tightened. Her eyes went bright. And she fought it. Fought the emotion the way she fought everything. With discipline and distance and the particular brand of control that comes from refusing to feel things. Because feeling things means acknowledging that you're human. And being human means being breakable. Grace, she repeated. A lago. I heard some of the soldiers talking. I don't know what you did before this. I don't know what happened 4 years ago. I heard some of the soldiers talking, but I don't care about any of that. What I know is that my daughter has a father because a woman I've never met decided his life was worth walking through a kill zone for. Serena looked at the ceiling, blinked hard twice. Give Grace a good life, Corporal. And that's all I want. I will. Take her fishing. Lake Oconee, Georgia. There's going to be an old sergeant there with a little aluminum boat. Tell him Serena said you should have the good spot on the North Shore. Bryce didn't understand the reference. Didn't need to. He nodded, grabbed his crutches, pulled himself upright. At the door, he turned back. My wife wants to name our next one after you. If we have another girl, don't. Name her something without weight, something light. She'll have enough heaviness in this world without carrying a stranger's name. Bryce left, and Serena sat with the pieces of her rifle and the weight of a baby named Grace, and the peculiar pain that comes from doing the right thing and having someone notice. Private Lena Coltrane was last. She came in quiet, closed the tent flap behind her, stood at attention with the rigid posture of a 22-year-old who doesn't know whether to salute, cry, or just stand there. At ease, Coltrane. I'm not your commanding officer. Ma'am, I wanted to... Don't thank me. If one more person thanks me today, I'm going to rip this sling off and walk out of here with one arm. Lena dropped the posture, sat on the cot, looked at Serena the way young soldiers look at the people they want to become, with hunger and fear in equal measure. I want to be like you. Serena stopped cleaning the rifle, set down the bolt, looked at Lena with an intensity that made the private lean back. No, you don't. Ma'am, you want to be like Harmon. You want to serve your time, do your job, go home, marry someone who makes you laugh, have kids that drive you crazy, grow old on a porch somewhere, complaining about the weather. That's the life, Coltrane. That's the mission everyone should want. But there is no but. What I am isn't something anyone should aspire to. I'm a woman who made a terrible mistake and spent 4 years trying to pay for it. And the man who could have helped me heal just died on a phone 12,000 miles away. I have a bullet hole in my shoulder, no unit, no rank, no home, and no idea what happens next. She held Lena's eyes. That is not a role model, Private. That's a cautionary tale. Lena absorbed this. She was young, not stupid. She heard what Serena said, but she also heard what Serena didn't say. That purpose isn't something you choose. It's something that chooses you. Why? And sometimes the people who carry the heaviest weight are the ones most worth following. And if I choose this path anyway? Serena studied her, long, hard. The way Mercer must have studied Serena on that first day, looking for something, finding it or not finding it, making a judgment that could change a life. Fort Benning, sniper school. Ask for instructors who trained under Mercer. Tell them Serena Ashford sent you. They'll know what that means. What does it mean? It means they'll train you harder than they've ever trained anyone. It means they'll break you down until you think there's nothing left. And then they'll find the thing that can't be broken and build everything on that. It means they'll teach you what Mercer taught me, that every trigger pull is a choice, and you carry every choice forever. Lena nodded, stood, walked to the tent flap. Coltrane. Yes, ma'am, if you do this, if you really do this. Remember one thing. The colonel's last words to me were about being a person, not a weapon. It took him 40 years of training soldiers to figure out that the most important thing he could teach was how to stop being a soldier. Don't let it take you that long. Lena Coltrane walked out of the medical tent into Afghan sunlight and felt the weight of a decision she wouldn't fully understand for years. Inside the tent, Serena Ashford finished reassembling her rifle, where each component clicked into place with mechanical certainty. The last piece, the bolt, slid home, and she closed the case. Ran her thumb over the engraving one more time. RM to SA. Hold the line. I held it, sir, she whispered. I held it. She packed her gear with one hand, slung the rifle case over her good shoulder, checked the tent for anything she might have left behind. There was nothing. She'd arrived with nothing personal. She would leave with nothing personal. The only things she left behind were 4 empty cartridge casings and the faint impression of a body on a military cot. She walked out of the medical tent at 18:47 hours. The sun was dropping behind the western ridge. The compound was alive with the sounds of recovery, generators humming, soldiers talking, the clank of metal as defensive positions were reinforced and resupplied. Nobody stopped her. Nobody tried. They saw her. On every soldier she passed looked at her with that particular expression, the one that says, I know what you did and I will never forget. But none of them stepped in her path. None of them asked where she was going. They understood, the way soldiers understand certain things, that this woman had given them everything she had. And the only repayment she wanted was the freedom to leave. Weston stood at the gate. He'd been waiting for over an hour. He knew she'd come this way, on the same way she'd come in, through the north gate, through the darkness, through the impossible. Ashford. She stopped, adjusted the rifle case on her shoulder, looked at him. The QRF filed its report. Siege broken by precision fires from organic assets. No further details. Your name doesn't appear anywhere. Good. Hayes wanted to recommend you for the Silver Star. I talked him out of it. Good. Is there anything you need? Transport? Medical follow-up? Landstuhl has... I'm not going to Landstuhl. He knew she wouldn't. Landstuhl was where Mercer had died. Walking those halls would mean confronting a room where a man she loved had spent his last moments watching her through a screen. She wasn't ready for that. Might never be ready. Where will you go? Everywhere that matters. Nowhere you'll find me. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have, Commander. She extended her hand. He took it. Her grip was firm despite the wound. Warm despite the cold. Real despite everything about her that felt like a ghost story waiting to be told. Thank you. For 94 lives. Thank Colonel Mercer. He sent me. He planned it. He guided the shots. He trained both sides of this battle and chose the right one at the end. I'm just the rifle. He was the hand. She released his grip, turned, walked through the gate. 3 people watched her leave. Weston at the gate. Harmon from the operations center doorway. Lena Coltrane from the rooftop where it all started. 3 witnesses who learned something on a rooftop in Afghanistan that would shape the rest of their lives. That saving lives matters more than taking them. That strength isn't volume, it's precision. That the people who protect you most are the ones you'll never see. Serena Ashford walked into the Afghan darkness and disappeared. Not dramatically, not cinematically. She just walked until the darkness took her. In the same way she'd slipped through 280 Taliban fighters without a single one knowing she was there. Like she was made of shadow and purpose, and the kind of silence that exists between one mission and the next. She never reported to Landstuhl for follow-up care. She never contacted Hayes or Calloway or the Pentagon. She never filed a report. She never claimed a kill. She simply vanished. The way protectors do. The way guardians do. Tonina, the way the people who hold the line do when the line no longer needs holding. And Fob Ironclad stood. 94 soldiers breathed. A baby named Grace waited for her father to come home. And somewhere in the darkness, a woman with a scar forming on her left shoulder adjusted the rifle on her back and kept walking. Because the watch wasn't over. It's never over. There's always another compound surrounded. Always another group of people who need someone willing to walk through the impossible on their behalf. And Serena Ashford was still walking. 15 years changes a man in ways he doesn't notice until he catches his reflection in a window and wonders when his father started staring back. Colonel Garrett Dean Weston, retired, 71 years old, stood before 30 students at the United States Army Sniper School, Fort Benning, Georgia, and felt every one of those years in his knees. His shoulders and the particular ache behind his ribs that flared up every time he talked about Afghanistan. He'd been teaching part-time for 3 years now. Guest lecturer, siege doctrine, and unconventional defense. The Army paid him a modest stipend. He would have done it for free. 30 students, 26 men, 4 women. The women were what got him every time. Not because they were unusual. Women had been cycling through sniper programs for years now. But because every time a female student raised her hand or challenged a tactical assumption or stayed on the range after everyone else had packed up, Weston thought about a blonde woman with pale blue eyes who'd walked through his gate in Paktika province and changed everything he believed about what one person could accomplish. Ironclad, he said, and the room went quiet. They knew the name. Everyone at Benning knew the name. Even if the official records told a sanitized version that left out everything that mattered. September 2012, 94 Americans surrounded by 280 Taliban for 68 hours. QRF grounded, ammunition critical, water rationed. By every metric, that compound should have fallen. He pulled up a photograph on the screen behind him. Grainy, taken from a UAV feed. The same feed a dying colonel had watched from a hospital bed in Germany. A single figure behind a rifle. Face obscured by shadow and distance, and the deliberate anonymity of someone who didn't want to be seen. This is Serena Ashford, trained by Colonel Rowan Mercer, who some of you know as the architect of modern precision engagement doctrine. She walked through a Taliban siege perimeter alone and on foot. She identified the entire enemy command structure through 12 hours of independent surveillance. And she eliminated 4 targets with 4 rounds at an average range exceeding 1,200 meters. In adverse conditions, while wounded, while her mentor guided her final shots by satellite phone from his deathbed, the room was silent. Not the respectful silence of students listening to a lecture, the deeper silence of people confronting something that reshapes their understanding of what's possible. A female cadet in the 3rd row raised her hand. Morrison, 24, at top of her class in precision marksmanship. Sir, with respect, 4 for 4 at that range in those conditions with a through-and-through shoulder wound. That's not tactically realistic. No, it's not. Then how? It was possible because she'd been trained by the best instructor this school ever produced, and because she was carrying weight that made missing unacceptable. Weston looked at Morrison. Young, sharp, hungry the way Serena had been hungry, not for glory, for purpose. 4 years before Ironclad, Ashford made a mistake. Bad intelligence led to a strike that killed 14 innocent people. She carried that guilt like a loaded weapon. Every shot she took after Hellman was measured against those 14 lives. Every mission was an attempt to balance an equation that can't be balanced. He paused. Let it land. What she didn't know, what none of us knew until that day on the rooftop, was that the guilt wasn't entirely hers, and Colonel Mercer had information that should have prevented the strike. He held back. He confessed while she was bleeding behind that rifle, with machine guns tearing her position apart, and a counter-sniper trained by the same mentor hunting her from the opposite ridge. Morrison leaned forward. A counter-sniper trained by the same instructor? Fareed Nazari, former Mujahideen. 34 confirmed kills against Soviet forces. Mercer trained him in 1986, 20 years before he trained Ashford. Same doctrine, same discipline, same patience, same lethal precision. The student who became a protector versus the student who became a weapon. And their dying teacher had to choose between them. Who did he choose? He chose the one trying to save lives. He chose Ashford. And then he guided her through the shot that killed the man he trained first. Think about that. Think about what that cost him. And then think about the fact that he died 12 minutes later with the words, "She's free" on his lips. The room held. 30 students processing a story that didn't fit neatly into tactical doctrine or engagement protocols. A story about guilt and redemption and the terrible intimacy of mentorship and the price of choosing protection over destruction. A male cadet raised his hand. "Sir, where is she now?" "I don't know. Is she still active?" "I don't know that either. She walked out of FOB Ironclad 15 years ago and disappeared. No follow-up medical care, no contact with any military or intelligence agency that I'm aware of. She simply vanished." "Then how do you know she's still alive?" Weston almost smiled. "I don't. But I believe she is. Because people like Serena Ashford don't stop. They don't retire to lake houses and teach their grandchildren to fish. Yes, they find the next compound that needs protecting and the next group of people who needs someone willing to walk through the impossible for them. That's not a career choice. That's a calling. And callings don't have expiration dates." He ended the lecture the way he always did. Not with tactics, not with doctrine, not with the technical specifications of precision engagement at extended range. He ended it with the only lesson that mattered. Killers take lives. Protectors save them. And every time you settle behind a scope and put your finger on a trigger, you are making a choice about which one you are. He let that settle. Colonel Mercer spent 40 years training the deadliest shooters in the world, and the last thing he learned, the thing he tried to teach Ashford with his dying breath, was that the most important skill isn't shooting, it's choosing. Choose protection, choose service. Choose the shot that saves over the shot that takes. That's the lesson. Ace lingered. "The hungry ones always do, sir." Lingered. "The hungry ones always do." "Sir?" "Morrison. The woman in that photograph. She wasn't military, no rank, no unit, no official standing. How does someone like that exist?" "She exists because the system failed. Because 94 Americans were dying while authorization forms sat on desks at Bagram. Nosh walked through a kill zone because nobody walked through a kill zone because nobody else was walking." That doesn't answer my question. No, it doesn't. Some questions don't have answers, Morrison. They just have truths that you learn to carry. Morrison nodded, gathered her materials, left. Weston stood alone in the lecture hall with a grainy photograph on the screen behind him, and the particular silence that follows a story about someone who changed your life and then disappeared before you could tell them. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. No caller ID. A text message. 6 words that stopped his heart. "Saw your lecture online. One correction." He stared at the screen. His hands trembled. Not from age, from recognition, from the sudden electric awareness that a ghost was speaking. 3 dots appeared. The typing indicator. Someone on the other end composing a message that would cross 15 years of silence. "You got one detail wrong. Mercer didn't train me to shoot people. He trained me to protect people. Huge difference." Weston sat down. His knees wouldn't hold him. 15 years. 15 years of wondering if she was alive. 15 years of teaching her story to students who didn't know her name. 15 years of looking at that photograph and asking the question every soldier asks about the people who saved them, and then vanished. He typed back with fingers that wouldn't stop shaking. "Where are you?" 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. The rhythm of someone deciding how much to reveal, how much to trust, how much of the distance to close. Still protecting, still learning what that means. 80 people last week, mountain province, tribal conflict. No one sent help, and no one was coming, so I walked. Weston closed his eyes. 80 people, mountain province, walked. The same pattern, the same impossible, solitary, selfless pattern. 15 years later, and Serena Ashford was still walking through kill zones for strangers who would never know her name. "You should stop. Come home. Harmon's at Lake Oconee. He's got a boat. His granddaughter Maya is 18 now. She'd love to meet you. Three dots. Long pause. Harmon kept the boat? He kept the boat. So he keeps the good spot on the North Shore open. Says a woman told him to. Tell him I remember. Tell him yourself. Come home, Serena. The longest pause. Weston watched the screen. 30 seconds. A minute. The typing indicator appeared and disappeared 4 times. She was writing and deleting. Writing and deleting. A woman who could hold a rifle steady at 2,200 meters couldn't hold a text message steady because going home meant being a person instead of a purpose. And she still didn't know how to do that. I can't. Why? Because there's always another compound, always another group of people trapped and waiting and running out of time. If I stop, who walks? Someone else. Someone you've never met. Someone who will figure it out the way you figured it out. What if they don't? Then that's on the world, not on you. You've paid your debt, Serena. You paid it 15 years ago. Mercer told you that. He told you the 14 were his weight. He took them with him. Or 3 dots. A long, aching silence that stretched across cell towers and satellites in 15 years of distance. Then the final message. Killers take lives. Protectors save them. That's the only lesson worth teaching. Thank you for keeping my name out of reports. Thank you for letting me be a ghost instead of a legend. The message ended with 2 letters. S.A. The phone went dead. Unknown number. Probably a burner. Already destroyed. Already discarded in a trash bin in a country Weston would never identify, in a town he'd never find, by a woman who'd mastered the art of disappearing so completely that the only proof she existed was 94 soldiers who came home and a baby named Grace, who was now a 15-year-old girl growing up in Oklahoma, with a father who walked with a limp and told her every birthday that she was alive because of someone she'd never meet. Weston set the phone down. Sir stared at the screen until it went dark. Then he stood, walked to the lecture hall window, and looked out at the training fields of Fort Benning, where a new generation of soldiers was learning to shoot straight and think clearly and make the choices that would define who they became. Morrison was on the range, prone position, eye to scope, absolutely still, the way Serena had been still on that rooftop 15 years ago, the way Mercer had taught his students to be still. Not as the absence of movement, but as the presence of purpose. Weston watched her fire. One shot, clean, precise. Downrange, the target dropped. He nodded to himself. That night, in a mountain province on the other side of the world, a blonde woman with a scar on her left shoulder settled behind a scope. Her hands were steady. Her breathing was controlled. Pale blue eyes tracked a threat that 80 people couldn't see and wouldn't survive without intervention. She fired. At 1,150 meters through mountain air. The bullet flew true. The threat dropped. 80 people who would never know her name continued breathing because of her. When it was done, she packed the rifle, closed the case, ran her thumb across the engraving the way she always did. RM to SA. Hold the line, and felt the ghost of a hand on her shoulder. Warm, steady, present. The way Colonel Rowan Mercer had been present on a rooftop in Afghanistan when his voice crossed 12,000 miles to guide her through the most important shots of her life. She stood, adjusted the case on her shoulder, the left one, the scarred one. It ached in cold weather and ached worse in rain and would probably ache for the rest of her life. She didn't mind. Scars are proof you survived something that tried to end you. The ache was a reminder that she was still here, still standing, still holding the line. She disappeared before anyone could say thank you, before recognition, before gratitude, before anyone could turn her into something she wasn't. Because Serena Ashford was not a legend. She was not a ghost story. She was not the Phantom of Helmand or the woman who broke the siege or the sniper who took 4 shots that saved 94 lives. She was a person, a broken, healed, scarred, steady, grieving, purposeful person who'd learned from a dying man that the highest form of strength is protection. That love isn't a feeling. It's a position you hold between danger and the people you'll never meet. That service isn't sacrifice when you choose it freely. And that the watch doesn't end because you're tired. The watch ends when there's no one left who needs you. And there was always someone who needed her. She walked into the night the same way she'd walked into the darkness at Fob Ironclad 15 years ago. The same way she'd slipped through enemy lines without a trace. The same way she'd walked out of a medical tent with one arm in a sling and a rifle on her back and a promise she was still learning to keep. Ready for the next mission. Ready for the next compound. It was paid long ago, but whose receipt she was paid long ago, but whose receipt she carried like a compass. Not because she owed it, but because it pointed her toward the people who needed her most. Hold the line. That's what the rifle said. That's what Mercer taught her. That's what she did. Not for glory, not for atonement. Not for balance or recognition or the approval of a world that would never know her name. For service. For purpose. For the 94 who came home, and the 80 who kept breathing, and every life she touched between the first shot and the last. Serena Ashford held the line, and the line held. The end.